So, is Horde questing better than Alliance in battle for Azeroth? Now, this is a question I have been asked a lot over the last few days, more than any other question. Especially when I've been streaming the battle for Azeroth, I've been asked it multiple times. I've sort of been giving those answers, had direct questions about it. So I'm going to answer that here. Now, before I start, I need to point out two very important things. First of all, there's going to be spoilers here. In order to talk about questing, I can't really do it without talking about some of the storylines in it. I'm not going to go into more detail than I feel I have to, but I am going to be revealing some of those plot lines. So if you don't want spoilers, you don't want this video. The second thing is you've got to bear in mind an awful lot of this is subjective, because whether one questing experience is better than another is down to our own particular opinion. So in terms of my own recollections of the questing, which of course I've been doing on several characters on both Horde and Alliance, I've gone through every zone that's testable so far. That's 4 out of the 6. And also bear in mind that not all of the quests, even within those 4 zones, are available yet. They keep adding new ones. I've done them at least twice. I've done some zones more than others, but I've done each of them at least twice. The range of quests is basically the same. I haven't gone through a single quest on either side where I've thought, oh, this is new. I haven't come across this before. It just doesn't happen. Every now and then we do get a quest that's sort of a bit new. We haven't come across its type before, but it's very rare. Generally speaking, the quests are what we've come to know and expect from World of Warcraft questing, which is no bad thing. We've got some vehicle quests, we've got some problem-solving quests, we've got some chuck things into a pot quests, we've got some gathering quests, we've got a hell of a lot of kill quests. That's what we got on both sides. In terms of the storylines, I'd actually say it's more varied on the Alliance. On the Alliance side, we have some storylines relating to witch hunting, pirate infiltration, dealing with the spirits of the recent past, the civil war, cultists, and a few other things as well. On the Horde side, it's just civil war. It's every zone, every quest has been somehow related to this civil war between the Zandalari trolls with which you are allying yourself as Horde and the blood trolls with which you are not. The zones all have their own atmosphere as well. But again, I would say the Alliance ones are more varied in terms of the landscapes. The Horde, one zone is a fetid swamp and one zone is lush jungle. They're both absolutely amazing and the atmosphere is perfect in them. But that's what you get in both of them. Whereas for the Alliance ones, out of the 2 zones so far, you've got autumnal woods, snow-laden mountains, misty glades. The harbours have their own distinct flavour as well. There's even sort of summer scenes as well in there. You've got lots of different areas even within the same zone. So am I in fact saying that the Alliance questing is better? Well, no. There is one major area in which the Horde experience is so far trumping that of the Alliance. And again, I have to point out that we have got at least a third of the storyline content yet to be revealed. Now, taken in isolation, the Alliance stuff does what you want it to do. It introduces you to the major players, it introduces you to the various different factions on Kulturas, and it does it very well. It's an enjoyable experience. As I say, I have quested through several times. Now, some people say they don't really want to get involved in Alpha because they'd get burnt out when it goes live, they'd get bored. I don't really experience that because apart from anything else, when it does go live, although I'll be familiar with the quests, I won't be familiar with the same leveling experience because they throw things at us in weird orders so that we can test it out. But I have not got bored so far. I will quite happily make another character the next time I stream Alpha and go through it all again. And any of the zones, they're all enjoyable. But the Horde hits big with major lore implications. Big spoilers now. So on one zone that I was testing out, the first one that became available for the Horde, there's a self-styled Titan Keeper and a direct Old God storyline, not just cultists and brain slugs, as happens on the Alliance. Now, when I first did this, and I was streaming at the time, I thought this is very strange. A Titan Keeper. But we know all the Keepers. They were named. We've got them in the Warcraft Chronicles. This isn't one of them. So what's going on? So, this is again one because the story's not complete, that we don't necessarily know the full details of this, but we've got someone who's claiming to be a keeper, and not only claiming to be a keeper, but claiming that there are other dormant keepers about as well. So either there are more keepers than we thought based on Warcraft Chronicles, or this is just a Titan construct that's been left on its own. There's not been any keepers anywhere near Zandalar for a while, and it's just decided that it's a keeper, and it's not an official one, it's a self-styled keeper. But either way, you've got something that makes you go, whoa. If you're interested in the lore, it makes you go, hang on a minute, I might need to rethink a few things here. The Alliance doesn't really have that. The Alliance is just introducing you to things on a fairly low level. It's not doing anything major on a cosmic scale, so to speak. And speaking of cosmic scale, there is something else fairly big as well. There's the Lower. Now, like the Wild Gods, which have got some major storyline time in Cataclysm, and a Loon, an elusive entity about which we know very little, there's always a lot of interest in any intelligence in the world of Warcraft that is not considered one of the mortal races. We always like to try and fit it into what we already know in terms of the order of life, so to speak. And another big one of these are the Lower Spirits. They've not had a massive amount of development in World of Warcraft, the game itself, although there have been storylines even as far back as vanilla. But in Battle for Azeroth, we're going to be working directly against and alongside them in a major way during the Horde questing. So if you're very interested in the lore side of things, you would look at this and go, well, absolutely, the Horde questing is going to be way better. Way better. But I'm just going to temper that with a couple of things. First of all, not necessarily everyone would even notice that. Some people, their understanding of the lore is just what they do via quests and things like that, many of which will be forgotten. And they may easily do a quest line like that without really even thinking about it, in which case I might argue maybe they might prefer the Alliance side more than the Horde side. The other thing we have to bear in mind is there's a lot of bias with this. I, for example, am an Alliance-leaning player. I also have a particular, not dislike, but lack of interest in troll-based lore. I'm not a huge fan of any of the older troll-based storylines around such troll dungeons and raids like Zul'Gurub and so on. I enjoyed the raids themselves, but not really the storylines that went with them, not really the art styles that go with them. That's just me personally. So you can well imagine that 2 Horde zones that have just got nothing but trolls in it and troll-based storylines are not going to be that interesting for me, but maybe fascinating for someone else. But then there's another thing to consider, and that is that we haven't really tested the level cap content, not in a major way. In the latest build, Blizzard did introduce us to the level capped content where we all go to each other's zones and do quests there. So the Alliance would move to Zandalar and do Zandalar based quests there. Not the same ones, of course. Now, it's a little difficult to test those at the moment because there's a bit of bugs with the way the quests are working, which means that some quests it's very difficult to work out what you're supposed to do. But nonetheless, we are going to be going there. We're going to be immersing ourselves in that storyline as well. Bear in mind, major storylines always lead to dungeons and raids. Now, we're all going to be doing those dungeon and raids, Alliance and Horde, which means we all need to be initiated into the major storylines. As such, although the leveling experience, if you're a lore nut, might be more enjoyable as Horde because you're going to be immersed in those storylines much earlier on, I think it's inevitable that we will still get immersed into the basic storylines and get the same information as an Alliance player when we get to level cap as well. Remember, there is no special zone for level capped questing like there was with Suramar in Legion. We basically hop over to the other 3 zones that we didn't level up through, and we have our own quest lines there. So hopefully that answers the question for yourself. You must bear in mind that just because some people don't like a particular experience doesn't mean you won't. We all have our own prejudices. Every single person, myself included, that has done a video on this or written an article on this has prejudices of their own. And when you're talking about something as subjective as a leveling experience, that is bound to colour that opinion. Given that most players are Horde players as well, might mean that people are more willing to think of the Horde experience as being better than the Alliance as well. Just as I'm an Alliance player, maybe that colours my views against the Horde side. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share with other people for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.